Hey guys, what's up? My name is Tom Spark and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 10 real reasons to be using a VPN in 2021. Now we're just at the end of 2020, which has been a god-awful year. Hopefully 2021 is better, but we're starting this video early just to give you some kind of idea why you should be using a VPN in the year 2021. And now in the last couple of years, things haven't been looking so good for privacy worldwide, with more invasive data collection companies being more prevalent than ever, more security leaks and stuff like that happening more than ever, data breaches out of the wazoo. It seems like every month there's a new data breach and stuff like that. So I do think it's a good time to re-examine if we should be using a VPN in the year 2021. Now, there are a lot of videos on YouTube now saying stuff like, here are the reasons you don't need a VPN, or here are the myths of VPN providers. Now, some of these videos can provide good information about some of the weaknesses of VPNs or how VPN companies themselves mismarket their products. However, most of these videos don't really focus on the reasons why you should be using a VPN, and if they do, they really only go into very small details. This video is going to be the flip side of the coin, going into more details why you should use one, rather than not talking so much about why you shouldn't use one or the things that VPN companies mismarket themselves by doing. I also have videos on that as well, where I talk about some of the things that VPNs can do and stuff like that as well. And I'll put those down in the comments if you want to check out those videos. But today we're focusing on reasons why you should use a VPN. So guys, perhaps the number one reason you should use a VPN in terms of security and privacy and stuff like that is that VPNs do hide your internet traffic from your internet service provider. So when you're using a VPN, it's encrypting all your outgoing traffic on your computer. This means that your internet service provider can no longer see your browsing history and stuff like that. To think that your internet service provider itself could see every website you visit and stuff like that and keep a record of this and sell it off to, in terms of advertisements and stuff like that, just make money doing that, it's pretty shady, and there really isn't like no limitations on, how internet service providers handle your data or just leak it out to people. So when you use a VPN, it's going to hide this data from your internet service provider. Now, I've seen the argument that this is essentially transferring trust from your ISP to a VPN company. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing as long as you trust your VPN company that you're using. I would say that most of my top-rated VPNs here on the channel are much more trustworthy than companies like Comcast and stuff like that. Comcast and all these other companies themselves, their main kind of metric for making money is providing internet, but also using people's internet data and stuff like that to make money. Whereas a good VPN company is going to make money by protecting your privacy. It's almost like the opposite end of the business spectrum. On one side, you have a company like VPN, which is trying to protect your privacy and security. And then you have another company like your ISP, which is trying to make money from your data. So I would definitely trust VPN over your ISP, especially a good one. And I've made it easy to pick a good one from selecting a Tier 1 VPN from vpntierlist.com. The second reason you should use a VPN in 2021 is that VPNs do enhance anonymity, but they don't provide it 100%. Now, this is one of the most kind of disputed subjects among VPNs and kind of VPN conspiracy theorist users. A lot of people who don't like VPNs say they don't provide you any level of anonymity. And this isn't really true. VPNs do provide a certain level of anonymity, but they don't provide 100% anonymity. The reason is because VPNs do hide your IP from a lot of websites. They do encrypt your traffic, which is hiding stuff from your ISP like I just discussed. And these two things, in conjunction with some other things I'll discuss in a little bit, do provide a certain level of anonymity. They don't provide 100%, nothing really does, even if you use every trick in the book. Even if you only use Tor on something like Tails OS or something like that, you're not even provided 100% anonymity. However, those things are regarded generally as pretty good anonymity tools, but even stuff like Tor does have its pitfalls. So just because a VPN doesn't provide 100% anonymity in terms of every subject doesn't mean that it doesn't provide a little bit. Because when you go to a website, they could see your real IP from your real location. This will give you targeted ads. Websites could collect where you are in the real world, but when you're using a VPN or a proxy, they're not going to have this small subset of information. There are other ways to track you and identify you, like browser fingerprinting, but you can also prevent those methods of tracking with something like the Brave browser, which does naturally, by default, prevent browser fingerprinting with a variety of different techniques. You can also use all sorts of other add-ons and extensions as well. And the more you go down this rabbit hole, the more kind of issues you're going to run into with browser and website compatibility. But there are ways to kind of increase your anonymity at each single step and use more products. I already made a video talking about all the products you might need to get closer as possible to 100% anonymity and privacy, and you can check that video down below in the comments as well. The third reason you might want to use a VPN is because it does protect your IP and give you an anonymous IP while torrenting. Now, if you don't use a VPN while torrenting or a stock-side proxy plugged into your BitTorrent application, anyone who's looking at the torrent swarm is going to be able to see your IP address. This basically means that if you download some kind of movie or something like that, there are specific companies that will look for IPs and send notices to ISPs to give you fines or try to cancel your internet service. This is essentially a way to kind of scare you to stop downloading stuff, and it's a way that the industry kind of works in kind of like a weird way. Now, that's not 100% certain if you'll ever actually get in trouble or go to court for stuff like that, but generally people don't really like to mess around with this kind of stuff. So by using a VPN, you can hide your IP and ensure that this will never happen. The fourth reason you should maybe use a VPN in 2021 is for geo unblocking. Now, if you're outside the United States, you can use a VPN to access services like Hulu, Prime Video, the USA version of Netflix, which has more content than most every other region. If you're in the United States, you can use a VPN to access stuff like BBC iPlayer or even stuff like the Japanese version of Netflix, which has a lot more anime content. So VPNs themselves have become more and more a way to unblock geo-restrictions around the world, and that's one of the most popular reasons people use VPNs. If you're looking to do that specifically, I would recommend something like TorGuard, ExpressVPN, or even WeVPN. I made a video on the top 2 streaming VPNs for 2021. Go check out that video. The fifth reason you should use a VPN in 2021 is to bypass bans and IP restrictions on certain websites. Now, I don't necessarily encourage or endorse trolling of any kind, but let's say you joined some kind of Discord server or something like that, and you got banned by accident. Using a VPN can allow you to make a new account and bypass these bans and get back in the server and maybe just act like it never happened and just be a generally good citizen. Now again, I don't really encourage you to raid or troll servers or be toxic or anything like that because it's pretty stupid, but you can bypass bans like this on Discord and other websites as well to make new accounts and just generally be given a second chance. So if you want to do that, VPNs are a good way to kind of bypass restrictions, bans from certain servers, and even game clients and stuff like that as well. Number 6 is that sometimes you can use VPNs to bypass firewalls and port restrictions at universities or schools. By doing this and using a VPN, you could gain access to certain game clients, game services, and even certain websites. A lot of people do use VPNs at universities specifically, and when I went to university, I remember this was a big thing. Certain games had certain port requirements, and the firewalls instructed by the IT people working on the networks made it pretty hard to access certain things. Using a VPN on your computer could bypass these restrictions and get you around most of these blocks very easily, which was really nice. So that's definitely a solid use case for VPN. Not only that, it can provide you some privacy and anonymity from your network professionals who could pretty much see all the traffic that, you know, all your browsing history and stuff like that. Or even at work, this is also an effective method. Another way you can use VPN, the 7th way, is that you can actually use VPNs to prevent DDoS attacks in certain games. Certain games use peer-to-peer networks, and if someone finds your IP, they can actually DDoS you or denial of service attack you, which is going to make you lag out of the game. By using a VPN, especially VPNs that provide like DDoS protected IPs, stuff like TorGuard does, you can use these IPs or even just shared IPs to kind of deflect some of the attacks and get around these DDoS attacks, or not just leak your IP to one of the people in the server, which they could use then to identify kind of your general geolocation as well. So it's sometimes a good idea to use a VPN in that way. The 9th reason you might want to use a VPN in 2021 is to just overall bypass censorship and government restrictions. Now, maybe you're going to China on some kind of business trip or going to some country with restricted internet access. If you have a VPN on your phone or laptop or something like that, chances are it's going to give you more access to certain websites than you would be able to access in these censored and restricted countries. I know Russia, for example, has a lot of censored and restricted websites. China does. There is a little bit of a tricky thing that sometimes when you go into these countries, certain VPNs are blacklisted and banned, but if you have it pre-installed, I think generally you should be pretty good to go using most of these services. Depending on specific cases like China, certain VPNs do work, some ones don't work. So it's kind of hard for me to test which ones do and don't work, but by using a VPN itself, you should, especially if you find one that does work, you should be able to get around a lot of restrictions and stuff like that in certain countries. The 10th thing that you might want to use a VPN for is for just general internet service provider throttling. Sometimes if internet service providers detect that you're torrenting, they will throttle your internet and make your service slower. Sometimes they'll detect you're streaming 4K or something like that and try to slow you down to prevent too much bandwidth across all their kind of customers, certain customers from hogging certain things. For example, this is actually pretty common, and using a VPN is going to make it so your internet service provider can't really see what you're doing in a lot of cases, and it's going to give you faster internet. It kind of just depends on your ISP and where you are in the world, but I've actually seen some people say that using a VPN can give them faster speeds and prevent ISP throttling. Anyways, guys, these are just some of the reasons why you might want to use a VPN these are just some of the reasons why you might want to use a VPN in 2021. Let me know down in the comments down below why you plan on using a VPN in 2021, and I'll see you again in the next video very soon.